Great. So, a lot to get to tonight. First, I want to get your take on these voting systems reportedly being hooked up to the internet. Does this indeed open the door to hacking and vote data being possibly manipulated?
Well, numerous experts from around the country have tested Dominion's voting systems for breachable connections to the servers through the internet, Harry Hursty being one, Jonathan Alderman up at the University of Michigan. So we knew prior to the election that this was the case. The mainstream media has been covering it up. So these revelations aren't new to me, but they may be new to a lot of the U.S. public.
When it comes to Michigan, one thing a lot of people were concerned about that was brought up at the hearings was that some of these numbers that were coming out on election night were in decimals, were in fractions. And all people were concerned if one vote, if one ballot equals one vote, then how are we getting decimals? And on Monday in Arizona, we saw Dr. Shiva. He believes that that means that Dominion voting systems may have been using weighted algorithms, meaning that perhaps Biden may have been getting, every ballot for him may have been 1.3 votes, and perhaps for President Trump, his ballots may have been counted as 7/10. What do you make of those concerns?
Well, I would like to see a lot more evidence before I would know that that is exactly how Dominion software itself was flipping votes. Really, what concerns me and what is demonstrably true is that the reporting is done in decimal format. You can see this in the New York Times database reporting. You can see this with Dominion voting systems reporting. So this opens up the ability for hackers to potentially get into, or malicious actors who have admin rights, to get in and manipulate the votes through rounding errors in the reportage and other types of malfeasance. So it doesn't necessarily have to be Dominion voting system itself. They can be the Trojan horses that are just allowing ballots to be manipulated by administrators that have access to the system.
And FEC filings show that when it comes to Dominion, for example, a lot of their employees, I believe it's over 85% or so, donate politically to Biden, or at least when it comes to political donations, about 85% or more go toward Biden or Democrats in general. Do you think that that's a conflict of interest?
Yeah, absolutely. Smartmatic, for example, has a policy not to allow employees to make political donations at all. And Dominion Voting Systems also makes 95% around donations to Democrats through its employees. And so one thing that I would like to point out is that just simply in the United States government as a whole, tracks very consistently with what we see with numerous bureaucracies, with unions. So it all seems to be a monolithic sort of block of united interests that is very concerning to me. So when you have voting systems that are engaging in, or at least have questionable security policies that allow Democrats to potentially breach our election security, and it's very opaque, and our voters have no way of tracking it, then we have to raise questions about if there's some sort of shared interest in all of these organizations and companies together, just as a block, trying to make sure that Democrats have some kind of unfair advantage.
And we also heard from today in Michigan a woman who worked as a Dominion contractor on election night with the whole ballot counting process. And we heard from her, her testimony, and she claims that she saw some ballots were being recounted 8 to 10 times. What did you make of her testimony?
Well, Melissa Caruso was actually very outgoing and passionate about what she saw, and she's not out by herself saying that ballots were rerun through the tabulators over and over again. Now she says it was 8 to 10 times. That's really high. Obviously, it's very concerning. But just the fact that these vote dumps that have been coming in, Wayne County being one of them, in the early mornings of 140,000 with Trump voters getting almost nothing. This syncs with what they're saying about not seeing any Trump ballots. Like she said not one. But others have said, only saw 2, was another witness that said that. So these kind of rates just do not sync with the political landscape, even in inner cities where we saw with Trump, he had more minority support this election by 4 points for Latinos and also Black Americans. Is higher than it was. So these kind of rates are inordinately high and raise red flags.